without lunch this year. We are going to now, as we continue in the spirit of women, we are now going to have our daughters of the movement, the children of Malcolm, Ossie Davis, and others. So hold your seats. We'll be starting in a few moments the daughters of the movement and their conversation. I see Dominique coming to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, my name is Dominique Sharpton. I'm the National Director of Membership at National Action Network and also the producer of special events. Before introducing the Daughters of the Movement panel, I do want to thank and congratulate, we have the Director of COVID Programs for Quest Health, who provided free testing to the whole convention during this year's National Convention, and is attending that convention today in person, Mr. Stephan Bonaventure. Thank you so much for all that you do. It is my honor and privilege to introduce a conversation to National Action Network's virtual convention experience. These Daughters of the Movement consist of a group of women who sat at the feet of those who were on the front lines of civil rights in the movement. We carry the oral history, cultural values, and wisdom passed down to us by some of the revolutionary leaders who turned the tide of American history. We are the Daughters of the Movement. Our memories about growing up watching our elders at work overlap and intertwine, as did the lives of our families, civil rights activists, artists, politicians, political strategists, religious leaders, and funders of the movement. This multi-generational sisterhood reaches audiences of all ages and advocates for social justice in order to inspire, to empower, and activate future generations. We were honored to spend time with one of the leading voices of this generation, Brittany Pacnett Cunningham, activist, host of Undistracted Podcasts, and MSNBC contributor who shows up continuously and shows out to fully represent the powerful Black female voice that resonates so pivotal in this day and time. Brittany sat down with some of the Daughters of the Movement on the strength of sisterhood and talking about how to address this recovery phase in America and return to a normal form from an abnormal lens. The Daughters of the Movement feature Gina Belafonte, daughter of Harry Belafonte; Suzanne Kay, daughter of Diane Carroll; Stacy Lynch, daughter of Bill Lynch; Dr. Hasna Muhammad, daughter of Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee; Keisha Sutton James, the granddaughter of the Honorable Percy Lewis Sutton; Ilyasa Shabazz, daughter of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz; and myself, Dominique Sharpton, daughter of Reverend Al Sharpton and Kathy Jordan Sharpton. Please give your attention to the screen and welcome Daughters of the Movement talking with Brittany Pacnett Cunningham.
So I called you Gina.
Right.
Right? And then I called you Keisha because I felt at that moment in time, I needed a sisterhood, right? And I think for everyone here, they felt they needed some type of sisterhood.
So my first instinct immediately when you called me was like, Suzanne. Like, I gotta call Suzanne. I want to meet Suzanne. And then we were like, let's call Hesna. Because not only is it just, for me, the need for us to gather as women and have a sisterhood in that way, but also for us, because we have such a common experience in our lives.
People love to know, how we are families and how we are connected.
It is our responsibility to support one another. So I think that when we think about our parents, that each one of our parents felt that way.
One of my lessons from my grandfather is how we as a people, elevate.
I didn't realize that, yes, your mother actually kind of mentored my mother. There was a big sister relationship there. I had no idea about that. And that definitely your mother did as well.
We have a really special opportunity because we've been groomed by very special people.
Yes.
And not only are we relishing in our own sisterhood and helping ourselves, but we have such an opportunity to help others.
Greetings, everyone. I am Brittany Pacnett Cunningham. I am an activist, a writer, an educator, and host of the podcast Undistracted. And I am so thrilled to be with this incredible gathering of sisters known to you and to many of us as the daughters of the movement. We've got so much beauty here, so much brilliance here, so much wisdom that is gathered here. And I'm excited for us to dig into the things that really matter. We've already been chatting, checking our makeup, sissing each other. So let's keep having that family conversation. And I'd love to make sure that everybody watching gets to know exactly who you're going to be able to hear from. So I'd love for each of you, starting with Miss Gina, to tell us who you are and tell us why co-creating Daughters of the Movement was so important to you.
Well, thank you so much, Brittany. So thrilled to see you and to be gathered here with my sisters. And thanks to Nan for giving us this platform once again. I'm Gina Belafonte. I'm an artivist and the executive director of Sankofa.org. It's a nonprofit organization founded by my father, Harry Belafonte, that works with artists and thought leaders in partnership with grassroots organizations, using art as a tool to educate, motivate, and activate artists and allies in service of grassroots movements. Well, listen, my sister called me and said, I want to have a gathering of some other women who have a legacy that they hold, and there's a common bond between us, and many of us don't know each other. And so when she calls, I answer. And in developing and creating this space that we hold together has become quite a sacred space for us, a beautiful sisterhood, and an opportunity for us to really be in community with each other and commune in a way where there's some shortcuts, because we have a shared lived experience that some folks don't understand the nuances of. Sure. I will let my sister Stacy tell the origin story and explain a little bit more about who she is. But this is a sisterhood I hold very sacred and dear to my heart, and I'm grateful that Stacy called me.
That's perfect. Stacy, why don't we come to you next?
Absolutely. And I'm going to say it again, Brittany, I'm a big fan of yours.
We all are.
All right, the feeling is very mutual.
Thank you.
So tell us this origin story. What, it's superheroes have origin stories, right? So I want to know you all.
Well, listen, I'll say we're all superheroes. Originally, when people ask, or they would say, you created Daughters of the Movement, and I've shifted that narrative because this is something we've all created together, right? In 2013, my father, Bill Lynch, who was the mastermind behind electing the first African-American mayor of New York City, David N. Dinkins, senior advisor to Nelson Mandela, Hillary Clinton, Jesse Jackson, the list goes on and on and on. He passed away in 2013, and, you know, a big, powerful, all-encompassing figure like that leaves a hole in your life and in many people and their lives, right? And so, you know, for a few years, you know, I almost felt like, I don't want to say lost, but I was like in a different headspace and zone, right? And in 2017, I'll never forget this moment. I was working at City Hall as a senior advisor, which, you know, Brittany, I know you know in politics and organizing, that's, you know, a tough field. And so, you know, I felt like I was in a space and a surrounding where people didn't know my life experience, who I am as a person. And I said, I need my sisters, right? And I called Gina Belafonte and I said, hey, G, I call her G. All right. I said, hey, G, I have this idea about, you know, coming together with other women with very similar life experiences. I have a sponsor, and the sponsor was really me, right? I have a sponsor that's willing to pay for dinner. Let's convene a bunch of women. And Gina called her network of women, and I reached out to my fellow sister, Keisha Sutton James. And I said the same thing. Hey, Keisha, I have this idea about creating really a safe space for women to come together and share, you know, things that are important to them, cry a little bit, fight a little bit, right? Come back together as sisters. And Brittany, it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made.
I love that. I love that. Keisha, I'd love to come to you. Tell us about yourself and why being a part of this sisterhood matters to you so much.
So clearly it does, because I just got a chill when Stacey said what she said. I literally got a chill over my body because it's so true. I'll say I had this, the same experience, but I feel amplified because I was the only grandchild. First of all, I was an only child, and I was the only grandchild for 25 years to Percy Sutton, who was Malcolm X's attorney, family attorney to the Shabazz family. We have Ilyasa as part of our sisterhood. First Manhattan Borough president, first Black man to run for mayor, and et cetera, et cetera. But it was, because I was an only child, and seen as very different because I was Percy Sutton's granddaughter, and that was a big deal in growing up in Harlem. I did feel like I lived a rather lonely existence, and I most certainly didn't have, while I'm a really sociable person, I didn't have a sisterhood I knew some of these sisters, but we had not come together around this common experience. And so the intentionality about saying, hey, I know your life. I know what some of your pressures are. I know what some of your burdens are. I know what some of your joys are. And I know how unique those are because of this particular dynamic. We all have opportunities to create sisterhood around different things, to create bonds around different things. This is a unique one, and so finding that space where I could be with women and share, with women who would have the same level of care with some of the things that I needed to hold close, because they understood too what I was carrying, whether it was about me or my family members was critical. And I'm getting another chill. It has been one of my life's biggest blessings. And I'll say one last thing about it is that we're doing exactly what our parents, and in my case, grandparents did, which is hold one another up, and to have this system where we are supporting one another in the same way, and with this, the same people, multi-generational kind of lineage of holding one another up is I know that the ancestors are beaming with pride with what Stacy has started.
They just have to be. Ilyasa, I'll actually come to you since Keisha talked about the connection between your families across generations. I'd love for you to just let people know who you are and why being a part of this family, this sisterhood remains so meaningful to you.
Well, first, it's such an honor and pleasure to be here. It's always great to share a panel with my beautiful sisters. Our parents are so connected, interconnected, and especially with you, Brittany. I know that you and I spent some time together not long ago. Well, I'm Ilyasa Shabazz. I'm a writer, I'm a community activist, a college professor, thinker, advocate, and I am one of 6 daughters of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz. All of my sisters are tall and opinionated. I always say that I have to always shout them out, or they'll be like, "You're not the only daughter of Malcolm X, you're not the only daughter of mommy." So, you know, I am one of 6 daughters. I think it prepares when you do come from a large family, especially a large family of women, it teaches you how to navigate many personalities and how to also balance friendship, sisterhood. And, I feel so honored that I can say that I'm also a family, a sister of this wonderful sisterhood. And what is so terrific about this sisterhood is that we understand the different challenges, the personal challenges we have as daughters of, and the expectations and, from others. And so it's just a wonderful space to be able to come together to share, our progress, our personal, intimate challenges, and to hold one another up. And we decided that this would be just so inspirational to bring to others the importance of sisterhood. My father said that a society is based on the progress of its women. And we know we are some dynamic individuals and we are nation builders and everything else wonderful and terrific. And so we are so happy and honored to share our sisterhood today with you, Brittany, and with everyone else.
I love that. And I would love to continue this part of the conversation with you, Dr. Muhammad. I mean, we've talked about kind of all of the various spaces that folks come from, right? Academia, writing, activism, most certainly. Your parents and you continue to be a part of all of that and then some, plus the arts. Talk to us a little bit about who you are and why Daughters of the Movement is so impactful in your life.
Certainly. Brittany, first I need to say that you and your work is exactly what my parents were talking about.
Oh, God bless.
You're doing that work that they knew had to be done. Absolutely. As you said, I'm a writer and photographer and educator, and my work focuses on elevating the human condition. I'm an advocate for elevating the human condition, and all of those elements enable me to do so, and I feel very comfortable building capacity in others in all of those ways. I have a sister also, and in addition to Nora, I have these 6 beautiful women who are my sisters. And while every child needs it, especially women, we need mirrors, we need reflections. And I'm able to see not only the beauty in each of my sisters, but the reflection of that beauty is a reflection on me. So who they are embellishes who I am. And I can find a shoulder to stand on, a shoulder to lean on, somebody to tell me my slip is hanging. That's what sisterhood does. And that's how come it's so important. We kind of mesh together because of the legacies of our parents that mesh together. And while we don't have the same struggles that they did, we have our own, and we have the wherewithal and the desire to continue the work that they did in our own ways and continue the legacies so that other people coming behind will know from whence they came and know the work that still needs to be done, like that work that still needs to be done.
You all are continuing these legacies so beautifully. Suzanne, I'd love to come to you because like Dr. Muhammad, you know, and her parents, Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, you really came up in that era of Black Hollywood that had something to say, right? And that made sure that the work extended beyond them. So I'd love to know a little bit about you and what keeps you as a part of the Daughters of the Movement.
Well, like Keisha, I've got tissue here. You can't see because I'm going through a little difficulty here with my health, and I apologize for not showing everyone. But
no apologies. We're glad you're here.
Well, that's part of the sisterhood. They've been supporting me. You know, I get very emotional about this too. So Keisha and I were the only children of the group. And I also, my family moved to California. My parents were divorced when I was 2. My mother moved to California for Julia. And so it also separated me from the other Black firsts families. You know, the other families that you're looking at here, they would have all remained back east. There would have been families like this in the South, but very few. I'm not saying there weren't any firsts out in California, but this network I didn't really connect to. So I left everybody. So when they embraced me, when I got the call from Gina saying that they were starting these dinner parties, Stacy had started, and we did quite a few of them before we decided to create this subgroup of the 7 of us and start Daughters of the Movement. We had a larger group, a lot of other daughters were part of it. I came to a dinner party. That's all I thought it was. You know, I didn't even know what to expect. It was nice. It was really nice. And then as it grew and grew, and ever since we've done the 7 of us and created this thing, like Keisha said, that we felt we should share, that's when it became something where I felt the hands of our ancestors. I really do. You know, my mother was pretty much a single mother in a way. I mean, my father was involved as he could be, but they were divorced, and my mother did what women had to do and still do, which is have a career and try to raise a child in a primarily white environment in Beverly Hills with no blueprint for how to do this, and under a lot of scrutiny on a TV show called Julia, where she was being critiqued very closely by both the Black and white community as to whether she was being adequately representative of our larger community. So she was under a little teeny bit of pressure, and she was trying to have a life, meaning maybe date somebody somewhere here or there, or, you know, there was very little room to figure out how to be a parent on top of that. And she grew up in Harlem. I grew up in Beverly Hills. That's not an easy, it's not the same environment. She was
transition, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She was in an integrated school back in Harlem before they emptied out our inner cities and, you know, did what they did to us. But she had a different experience than I did, and very different lived experience. So she really didn't know what to do. So I feel that she's sitting up there somewhere breathing a sigh of relief about this sisterhood, because it has taken me, even though I'm older now, it's almost finished the work she couldn't do. This group has mothered me. I could get all teary, but this group has mothered me in ways my mother did not know how to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're going to make me cry.
I know, I'm sorry.
Right now we're all getting Keisha's chills because
Seriously.
This is so beautiful. And I think that people often will, you know, see a website or hear something with an official name or title and think that it's all flash and no substance, right? But that this is real family, real sisterhood, dealing with the hard things. And you all are so kind as to give us the gift of sharing that sisterhood with us. So I have to end this question with the reason why we're all here together to have this conversation with the National Action Network. That would be you, Miss Dominique Sharpton. You have clearly inherited and continue to inherit a really powerful social justice legacy. Tell us about yourself and why being a part of this is meaningful for you.
I hate to have to follow Suzanne, and I'm crying, and oh my Lord, thank you. But thank you, Brittany, also. I mean, I love and admire you so much. I know we don't often get to talk so much, but I watch you, like, everything that you do. Like, you know, you have me as a cheerleader saying, yes.
Y'all gonna have to adopt me in the sisterhood the way you're talking, so I just know I'm signing up.
Done. Adopted. In. Done.
We love you, and we thank you for being, young, Black, beautiful, intelligent, brilliant, vocal voice.
Oh, God bless you.
I really appreciate it, and I know that, you know, we have to pay homage where it's due. So thank you, Brittany, and thank you for being here with us.
Flowers.
But yeah, so I'm one of 2 daughters of Reverend Al Sharpton. I'm the oldest, but I'm the youngest of this group. I'm the oldest of my two dynamics.
And she always lets us know that.
She's our baby.
We never leave that off.
That's what
We never
babies
leave that
do,
off.
though.
She's
They
our
always-
baby.
No, I say that to say that this sisterhood, I grew up having just Ashley. Ashley and I were, and those of you who know us, we're like twins, but we're like night and day. So Ashley's been my whole dynamic, my whole life. My parents kept us pretty, sheltered growing up. My dad, I was born in 1986, so it was at the time when my dad was, really starting to be out there, being vocal about progressing, our rights, Black people's rights, and that was not really settling with a lot of folks. So he was pretty controversial. And so growing up in the midst of that, being an adolescent and wanting to grow up, just having a normal childhood, it just, it seemed kind of contradicting in and of itself. So there were a lot of strict rules growing up in my house. And so Ashley was always my outlet. Creatively, she was just always my go-to and always my strength and dynamic. And also my mother, I have to point out, my mom, Kathy, was also the rock, that kept us, really spiritually grounded and also grounded in understanding, what this meant to be Al Sharpton's daughter, if that makes any sense. But this sisterhood, I didn't have this sisterhood until my late 20s, early 30s. And this sisterhood really helped to help define me in my adult life, helped to define, my sense of understanding of who I am and the support system that is relatively available in this space that I never had before. I only had my sister, I only had my immediate family. So that's what this is for me. This is like, one of my Bibles, or one of my, one of my things that I need every day to continue going.
Yeah.
And it's something that I appreciate that is not wavering. So a lot of the, like growing up, I had a lot of friends that wavered. They came in my life for a minute, they got what they wanted, or if they wanted anything, they got what they needed and they moved on. And I never really, not to say that I didn't keep in contact, but, in terms of the closest and friendship, they were gone. They're gone.
Yeah.
For a moment, they're gone. This sisterhood, because of our connection, it brings us together and it grounds us in a way that is, everlasting. And it's something that, we can have forever. And so I love that. But in the work that I do at National Action Network, I'm the National Director of Membership. We have over 120 chapters across the United States. And me, Dominique, I grew up wanting to be an actress. I wanted to be, to really funnel my creativity on the stage.
And here you are fighting the power.
Yeah, right. So I was like, my dad can do that, but I just want to be, different. I wanted to be different. And then finding that voice. So I came working for National Action Network in 2009. I started working with my father as a producer of his syndicated radio program, Keeping It Real. And because of my creative expertise, so me, Dominique, I was hands-on. I was answering phones. I was doing everything at the station, and then realized, wow, there are a lot of people that call you, Dad, and depend on you for their crisis, to get help. I want to be a part of that. I want to be more a part of that. So that started my evolution of working with National Action Network. But that evolved to fast forward years later, Trayvon Martin happened. And as a young person, I was so enraged. I had seen, Amadou Diallo, I had seen Sean Bell happen, and I had seen the injustice happen, and it was outrageous. But to see the Trayvon Martin situation happen was a big realization moment for me to say, we need more of us. We need more young people out there doing this work. We have a voice too. We have a place too. Like, let's pull up. Like, it was that kind of energy.
Yeah.
So all of that BLM, the movements erupted, and it was like, yes, this is what we need. This is the energy. And then George Floyd. Okay. So now we're still dealing with, in the time, how we can define our own voice and how everybody now with social media can be a part of that. But how does that look like individually? What are we doing individually to amplify our voice in as a collective for the movement to progress? And so that's kind of where I want to kind of bridge the gap and bring people together from all different walks of life, from all different networks, to say, look, collectively we came together more. Look at the dynamic work that we can do collectively to really progress this nation. So that's what I focus on.
I want to stick with this, and Ilyasah, I want to come back to you, because the other part of the reason why you all took this sisterhood public is because you wanted to capture for people the oral history, the values and the wisdom that you all had, you know, a front row seat to, but that so many of the rest of us, as we are trying to engage in these movements, really need. Why does passing that on matter more now than ever?
Well, I think, you know, this is definitely a moment ripe in history. We were all at home questioning, what is this pandemic? Are we going to live or not? Right? And being forced to watch this horrific killing of George Floyd, and people finally understanding that this is what we've been talking about for 400, you know, for such a long time, ever since Christopher Columbus came to this country. And so I think it's, you know, when we look at our education curriculum, and that is many of our premise, and understanding that the omission of Black, Indigenous, Brown, Asian, and Latinx history is not incidental. These exclusions distance us from our own heritage, from our lineage, and ultimately from our own sense of self. And this false, whitewashed curriculum enforces the myth that there has never been scholars, thinkers, innovators, caregivers, iconoclasts, artists, revolutionaries across the various identities. And if we consider, for example, that Africa is the cradle of the most advanced civilization, you know, and that these kingdoms were full of immense progress, scholarship, and knowledge, learning about these kinds of things, including these things in our curriculum, the same way we teach our children about ancient Greece and Rome, encourages everyone to better appreciate the present complexity of Black civilization and negate the teaching of racism, discrimination, and hate, and rather focus on instilling the values of love, the values of equality, you know, all of these things, to understand, as Dr. Muhammad said, that we are a reflection of one another. And when we see injustice like this horrific killing of George Floyd, but these kinds of killings continue to happen. They've happened for a long time during slavery. They continue to happen in Jim Crow. They're happening today. And it's not until we understand that we have to do the work, that we have to understand how to come together, how to love how to first love ourselves, but then, you know, see ourselves as a reflection of one another and do this necessary work. And again, the importance of our sisterhood so that we can support one another in these efforts.
Somebody was just calling for the wisdom. Somebody wanted the wisdom just right now. That's what
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So I just want to add to what my brilliant sister Ilyasa was saying. And I mean, if you listen to her and look at her, you can see Betty and Malcolm all in one. All in one. But I think, you know, to answer your question about, you know, passing the torch down to the next generation, you know, I grew up in a household where my father, and, you know, I have to credit him, he surrounded himself with brilliant women, right? Brilliant women that were truly the organizers behind a lot of these movements and don't necessarily get the credit, right? So I would see firsthand Dorothy Height, and, you know, my father advising Dorothy and Dorothy telling my father what to do. Hazel Dukes, Miriam Wright Edelman, and the list goes on and on. Betty Shabazz, right? And I think it's critical that organizations like Daughters of the Movement and sisterhoods really support other sisters in the movement, like yourself, Brittany, right? Who are doing the work, who are really our voice out there, right? And it's time for us to really support you and others like you, whether it is resources, right? Or imparting knowledge and information. And so I think we need to acknowledge, I love our brothers, right? But we need to acknowledge what our sisters are really doing in this movement.
Because I think to the point you made earlier, Dr. Muhammad, this is all about elevating the human condition, right? That the point that Malcolm X had made so frequently, that a society is only doing as well as its women are doing, right? And I will take it a step further in the words of Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, right? That you can measure society by how it treats Black women.
There you go.
How we are treated actually indicates how all of society will be treated. Why do you think, Dr. Muhammad, this kind of wisdom is necessary in a moment like this?
I think that the feminine sensibility is prominent now, and it's what's needed in order to solve some of the problems that we're having. We cannot disassociate or forget about the past and all of the women, as well as the men, who work so hard to get us to where we are. You could even include the women who decided to throw their babies off of the slave ships in the Middle Passage. But certainly, you know, Harriet Tubman and Ida B. Wells and Shirley Chisholm and all on and on. And it's like a relay race. And we have to continue the passage, not only of information, but also of support. It's important as well, as we look for justice from others and being treated equitably from others, we need also to make sure to take care of ourselves, because no one can take care of a woman like a woman, and no one can take care of a Black woman like a Black woman. And I say that without excluding folks, but it's important for us to include in the remedy our own self-support and our own attempts to heal and move forward. And that moving forward, but to me, and I'm sure others, includes the teaching of our children. And the first, excuse me, sorry.
No problem.
The first educator is the mother.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And as that child goes into society, the community needs to grow along with it. And in that teaching, in that education, formal or otherwise, we must learn also to care for ourselves, teach our daughters and our sons to care for themselves and others, and prepare the baton, repair the baton, lengthen the baton, turn it into whatever it needs to be in order to reach back and thrust forward those among us.
Suzanne, you talked a little bit in your introduction about just how much care you have gotten from this sisterhood, right? How much the strengthening and lengthening and repair of that baton you have actually experienced with this group of women. Why do you think it's important to make sure that the sisterhood is actually a legacy, right? So that it doesn't just stop with the last generation or with this generation, but that it actually continues. Why do you feel like this is the right thing to invest in?
You know, I can't fully answer why Black women have what we have. I don't fully know what it is. There's a saying I heard that that they are like the pupil of the eye. The pupil is the darkest part of the eye, and it's where the light comes in to the body. And there is something that we carry. It's an accumulation of lived experiences that goes back to the, you know, probably before we landed on this land here, before we came here. If you have any sisters that come from Africa, you can attest to that. So it's just something in us. And I wish I could put my finger on exactly what it is, but I don't know. But we have been trained at times to undervalue whatever that is. And so that's what, you know, Yasa was talking about, and what, you know, Hester was talking about. This is this thing about being miseducated. So if we don't, and maybe the younger generation of Black women have a better understanding of this, but I know that a lot of them still need a reminder constantly, this reflection, the word that keeps coming back in this, a reminder that it's not just that we have, you know, some abilities. We need to be leaders for the whole of creation. Really, this country is not going to move forward. I mean, clearly we're doing it for Black people, but this whole country is not going to get anywhere until we understand, and then we help them understand that, something my mom always said, which is that she didn't want a seat at the table. She wasn't grateful for a seat at the table, that she felt those already seated needed her there. I mean, that's the truth of it. And we have to make sure that our children, this next generation, understand that what they're doing and what they've inherited is necessary for this country to come close to what it claimed it wanted to be in those founding doctrines. So without us, it's not going to happen, period. Yeah. So that's why we carry it forward.
We remain the protectors of the democratic project, right? Even though it did not include us in its very creation. So let's talk about that democratic project a little bit, because you all are continuing the legacy in so many ways through the modeling of what sisterhood truly looks like, and also in the political world. Keisha, you are running a campaign right now. I'm assuming in part because, obviously you've seen political activity and engagement throughout your family history, but also because you understand that you need to be at the table, that we need you at the table. So talk to me a little bit about how you view politics as a key lever for the work of the Daughters of the Movement. I mean, in my hometown of St. Louis, we just saw the election of Tashara Jones, our good sister, who herself is the daughter of the movement, because, Vervis Jones, her father, was a longtime politician in St. Louis and leader in the Black community. So we're starting to see some success of Black women and Black women who come from the kind of legacies you all come from, engaging in political leadership. So why that pathway for you? Why does this lever matter?
So I was brought up to understand that that politics is the paradigm that defines, frankly, not on a spiritual level, but politics is the paradigm that defines much of our existence. It defines whether or not a police officer can arrest you for a crime. It defines whether or not your garbage is going to get picked up. It defines whether or not your school is going to be properly funded. It defines so much about our existence. And we have to be engaged with it in order to ensure that our existence is serviced properly. And it's our right for our existence to be serviced properly. But I wanted to piggyback on a little bit of what Ilyasa and Hesna had said. We were intentionally not taught civic engagement because they don't want us to be engaged in this process. And to
just how powerful we are. Hello, Georgia.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly.
Powered up. That's right.
Precisely. So, I've been obviously co-signed 100% on what the sister was saying about the power of us as a people. But the other part that was missing from our education and is still missing from public school education and from the public's education is the power of being engaged in our civic process, in our political process. I literally just came in from standing on the street corner trying to get people to pay attention to Alvin Bragg, Black man running for Manhattan District Attorney, who has the same lived experience as everybody on 125th Street in Harlem, has the same lived experience in terms of interactions with the police, in terms of public safety issues because of crime in our neighborhood, and all of that, and how hard it is to get people to pay attention because they've been taught directly or indirectly that they shouldn't participate in this process. They've been taught that politicians are bad. They've been taught that their vote doesn't count, that their voice doesn't count, that they can't make change. And that was intentional. And so yes, most certainly, the reason I'm doing this is because it was instilled in me. He also happens to be an exceptional candidate, but the work, where I am in my life is most certainly, it's all about my ancestors, not just my grandfather, but back beyond them. This is in my blood. It took me a while to get here, but it's in my blood.
It takes a while to get there because it's frightening, right? It's scary. It's intimidating. Dominique, did you have something to add?
I was going to say, just to piggyback what Keisha was saying, and that's why one thing that my father, Reverend Sharpton, always taught us was that movements are built from the ground up, not from the top down.
Yeah.
And so she was talking about civic engagement and how, people are just disengaged, but this is why, we as individuals have to pay that forward. And so, right here at National Action Network, we formed the National Action Network's Youth Huddle, where civic engagement is taking place, where young people are engaged in the voting process and understanding why voting matters and can talk about the importance of different elections and understanding what they mean and what voting means. I remember being the first time I ever voted in my life was for my father running for president in 2004. And so, yeah, it's crazy. And so now, Ashley has founded this National Action Network Youth Huddle where candidates like Alvin Bragg and Stacey Lynch come, pull up, and talk to the young people about the engagement process of voting. And sometimes it just starts with that. It starts with young people feeling like you care, feeling like the candidates care about them, feeling like their voice does matter and that their votes do count. And not just seeing them, when it's time for an election, but seeing them all the time in their community, pull up to where they're learning and where they need, the support and leverage that they are looking for to really help them in their lives. So,
speaking of candidates, we've got one right here on the panel among the daughters of the movement. I can't ask the politics question without coming to you, Stacey. You did the hard thing.
Yeah.
You put your name in the ring.
That's right. I'm on the ballot.
Yeah. What does it feel like to be in the arena, knowing where you come from and what your city needs to do moving forward?
I mean, listen, if I would lie to you if I didn't say I wasn't scared, right? There's always scared, girl, scared.
Doing it anyway.
But I'm doing it anyway. I'm doing it anyway, right? I mean, listen, there's always a fear factor to this. And Brittany, I'm going to be really honest. Like, I worked for a very progressive mayor, right? And, I felt like the policies weren't progressive enough for us, right? And so when I'm the only Black woman in the room, right? When I'm the only woman in the room, oftentimes, right? That fear that I have can't compare to that need, right? To have a diverse group of women, people of color leading this city, right? And so, I was scared, Brittany. I said, oh my God, am I really doing this, right? But I've also been in those rooms where I had to fight back on policy that was hurtful to us, right? And so I'm used to my voice shaking or trembling, right? And I made a very conscious decision very early on in this process that I would be true to myself, true to my community, right? And that, fear that's inside me, I have to compress it because I'm here for us. Period, point blank.
So we're fighting the fight in the political realm. The other lane to this always is arts and culture, right? Because the two inform one another. Sometimes culture changes policy, sometimes policy changes culture, but they're always talking to each other. Gina, you are an expert at that particular symbiosis, right? You are constantly thinking about how can we pull the levers of art and culture to make this thing work. And one of the ways you're doing that is through Clubhouse. I know you always keep your finger on the pulse of what's popping. And we are on Clubhouse talking about all kinds of things. So the Daughters of the Movement has a series on Clubhouse. Talk to us about how you all are thinking about bringing in all of this wisdom and this history and this work into this kind of current cultural landscape. How are you approaching that?
Very intentionally. One thing I wanted to just say about Stacey's fear is that it's not just compressing it. It's a deeper understanding that her fear is shared among the community in terms of how to access a healthy, wonderful, connected life.
Yeah.
And I think, Stacey, I would say that your fear is fueling you.
Absolutely.
I don't think your fear is compressing. I don't think you push that down.
That's
because
right.
when I hear that shake in your voice, that's powerful to
Yeah.
me. That's the power of vulnerability.
Yeah.
To bring that forward.
You repeat that, Stacey?
Yes.
I will repeat it for you and pass.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a good word.
Absolutely. It is driving me. Absolutely. See, my sister there.
That's sisterhood. That's sisterhood. Continue.
Yeah, and that's something that's so amazing about this sisterhood is that we can really hold each other accountable in a way that helps us grow individually.
Absolutely.
That helps us have a deeper understanding of who we are. Therefore, when we present ourselves to the community, we're that much more empowered, not only by ourselves, but the support system that we provide for each other. So as it relates to Clubhouse, which is a very interesting audio platform that started last year, earlier in the year, sort of right after COVID lockdown. I was invited to participate on the platform, and for me at first, it helped me pivot some of the work that I was doing in our nonprofit at Sankofa. We immediately pivoted from our cultural events that were in-person events to having to come up with creative ways to virtually, do outreach into the community. And we started doing meditations, I started to facilitate 2 guided meditations every single day for 4.5 months. Because I was determined that we were going to be there for the community as it related to our mental health, with so much that we weren't certain about what was going to happen. Not only what was going to happen to our health, but what was going to happen to our jobs, what was going to happen to our income. And a lot of people, live in the future. They project into the future, oh my God, if I don't do. So I saw the opportunity on Clubhouse to be able to reach a wider community. And because the app has an interesting cross-section of people engaging on it, it has gone through many different cycles and flows of participation. I thought it would make sense for Daughters of the Movement to have a club on Clubhouse so that we would be able to reach folks who were interested in what we had to say, but didn't know or have a clue as to who we are. Like today, for instance, we're with Nan, right? Nan has a sense of the legacies that we all hold. But many people, especially on Clubhouse, who are of a younger demographic, who range in race and socioeconomics, don't necessarily know who a Diane Carroll or an Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee are, or a Harry Belafonte, until you say, oh, well, did you see that movie? Or did you see that thing? So it was a cultural space where we were able to bring all of our legacies and really show the intersection of culture and politics. I mean, my father will argue that he was and is an activist before he was an artist. And as he was able to shape his artistry, I mean, he had the good fortune of being mentored and femtored and peer-toured, with some of the greats. Ossie and Ruby were in the American Negro Theater with my father and Sidney Poitier. And then he was able to collaborate with Diane Carroll. But his mentor was Paul Robeson, another artist of great, great social impact. And he saw what the world did to his mentor. He saw what the United States did to his mentor. And as he grew in his artistry, he wanted to ensure that should he reach success, he would be able to not only be a dynamic storyteller of the legacy of poor people and Black people, but also use his platform to engage those on the ground who were doing work, use his platform to enrich his audiences with the sounds and storytelling of the diaspora and the continent and different languages, and really make sure that his audiences that were predominantly white in the beginning were able to have a different taste and flavor of what culturally Black people brought to the table. And this was a political act in itself. And so my father will say that art is political. All art is political, whether it intends to be or not. And so when I saw Clubhouse, I thought, okay, well, here's a platform. Let us engage this platform and bring forward messages of hope, messages of authenticity, bring accuracy, accountability, bring the true stories and storytelling of our sisterhood, as well as our legacy, as well as the broader community. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting space. There are other spaces also that we will explore, like fan base or other places that speak more specifically and articulately to people of color. And while I will say, from what I see so far, Clubhouse doesn't discriminate, it is an app that is created by, I guess one person of color and a white man, male-driven, as many tech spaces are. And the app was, I think, populated at first by their community, and then it was broadened to the community, to Black people and the community of color that really engaged in content creation. And we brought our culture to that space. And we helped get that $4 billion evaluation for those people. And it was our culture, and it was our consistency, it was our deep need to engage in community that elevated that platform for those men. And I will say that I think they're doing their best to engage people of color on their team and to make sure and ensure that there is a diverse group of people participating. But anyway, that's where Clubhouse came into the mix with Daughters of the Movement. And we hope to be able to bring, with much intentionality, opportunities for not only people to hear from us and our journeys and our stories, but also we will share our platform with other sisters and other daughters, so that there will be a wider net thrown out to engage the community at large, to participate in this discourse and conversation around education, around health, around politics, around history, and culture and art.
And can I add,
Brittany, can I just add that this is an example of a reflection and standing on a sister's shoulders, because Gina was a brilliant director of a Clubhouse production of For Color Girls, Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. And it was a brilliant job that inspired me specifically, and I'm sure all of us, to look at that platform a little differently and to engage in it in ways that we hadn't necessarily thought to do. So this is a fine example of how our sisterhood elevates each other, because Gina did a fabulous job, and I believe it'll be coming again, and I'm sure she'll...
Will we get an encore?
Yeah, she'll post it or something.
Yes, we're going to be back on Clubhouse in the UN 75 Club, because that's another thing we do, is while we at Sankofa love to talk about the work we do, we're always in collaboration. We love to shine a light on other artistic and cultural partners. And so UN 75 Club on Clubhouse will be hosting For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough on April 17th at 3 p.m. PST. So please, those who are on Clubhouse, join us there. I'm excited to bring the opportunity. And I will say this about that, and thank you, Hasna, for highlighting this work, because traditionally the work has 7 characters. And I did 3 rounds of auditions on Clubhouse, and it was so clear that the community of Black women and the community of people who identify as women on Clubhouse, how they really wanted to not only bring forth the ancestral gift that Ntozake Shange gave us, but also live through this material their own experiences. And so I ended up casting 17 women to carry this text forward. So it was a great,
truly a choreo poem. I love
yes, a true choreo poem. And we had the original director, and we had original cast members of the film and the play. Carol Maillard from Sweetheart on the Rock, who was in the original play. Alfre Woodard, CCH Pounder. And all of them came forward because this work really is a space and a place where Black women of the diaspora can hear their voice.
Yeah.
And it's not like changed and shifted and articulated in a Eurocentric way. It's authentic to the voice of the incredible diversity of Black women, because we're not a monolith.
No.
As you can see represented in our
I was going to say, this is a beautiful exemplar of just how many shades and all dimensions that we possess, right? And the multitudes that we carry. I could have this conversation all day with you all, and I'm going to crash one of you all's dinner. So just let me know in the next minute. I'm going to be there.
You're invited. Come on.
I'm coming through.
No need to crash.
But before I go, I'd love to ask this last question to each of you. Because you all have been carrying on so many ancestral legacies in such beautiful and dynamic ways. Each of you has continued to contribute so much to our community, to our country, to our world. And we didn't get to necessarily have audience with all of the people that you grew up calling mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. What is, from each of you, the wisdom that has carried you throughout the incredible work that you're doing? Is if there's one piece of wisdom that you got from those who passed the legacy to you that has helped you continue it, what is that wisdom? Stacey, I'm going to come to you first.
Woo, Brittany. Okay. So,
you know, we want the goods. We want all the
absolutely. So, you know, last week I had an interview with a reporter, and it brought me back to some of the things that my father would say. And he said two things that stuck with me. One was, you can always come home, right? So that meant, like, if you mess up, if you trip, right, you can always come home. And then he would always say to me, in addition to that, you always have to come back home, right? So when I'm in these rooms thinking about, is this policy right for this particular community or neighborhood, or the mama who raised me, right? Like, you know, you think about stuff like that and you say to yourself, I have to do the right thing by my folks because I'm coming back home.
Yeah.
So, you know, he was brilliant, very, very in tune with community and making sure that community get what they want and what they, you know, ultimately need. And, you know, it all started with home, right? Coming back home.
I love that. So you can always come home, and you always got to come home.
You got to get to come back home. That's
Keisha,
right.
Keisha, how about you?
I am sorry, my Wi-Fi went down right when you were going to ask the question. What was the question?
Okay, I would just love to know that one piece of wisdom that you got through your family legacy that has continued to carry you throughout all the incredible work you're doing.
Oh my God, that's so hard. Sorry, I'm freezing. I'm like,
you're like, there's so much. I get it. There's a lot.
So much. I think I would go with. My grandfather was really unique in that he really defined his own life and his own path in a way that I think is unusual for most, not to mention being Black. Professionally, he was a Tuskegee Airman, he was an activist, he was a politician, he was an entrepreneur, and he was not confined in any way to any one path. It wasn't confined in any way to one narrative of what he could be. And so to me, it's that, like, the freedom to break the mold and to make the choices that feel good in your soul and that you believe are going to have an impact. People thought he was a madman for thinking he could own an FM radio station or own the Apollo Theater. an FM radio station in New York City, the #1 market in the country, or only Apollo Theater. No, they didn't want to, to fund it. Ilyas's mom was one of the first shareholders, the founding shareholders of our company. So was Roberta Flack. So we're a whole bunch of people. We came together and said, we're going to do that. And so I think it was that freedom. That's the thing that I think is probably I hold on to the most, is the freedom to define who I am and how I am going to have an impact. And I'll just piggyback one tiny bit, little thing. I thought he was fearless until after he died. And I was talking to Mayor Dinkins and Basil Patterson. And I made the mistake of saying something about how he did all this and he was fearless. And they said, no, Keisha. He had plenty of fear. He did exactly what Stacey did. He pushed through it. Yeah. So I'm trying to do the same thing.
Is it possible, Brittany? I would love to just jump and say my bit right after
Yes,
that.
no, I was coming to you next. Perfect.
It so fits the same thing I was going to say. My mother didn't tell me a lot of things, like those kind of, those sayings, but I observed, and I didn't understand until I was much older that I embodied her in many ways. So I didn't understand that I carry her. People say I have a certain presence when I walk in a room. I had no idea. I really didn't. It took me so long to even know what people were talking about. But that is what I always saw. She, you could laugh about her sort of the dynasty exaggeration of it and everything, but she did walk in the room like she owned the room. I mean, that was very much. And I, like Keisha, really thought my mother didn't deal with depression. I thought she didn't deal with fear. I just thought she just got that from her mother, who also had a kind of elegance. And so I just thought it was natural to her, and that's what she did. I was wrong. It was natural to her, but after she passed away, I found tucked in the back of her bookshelf a diary, which I know she left for me. My mother did not make mistakes. Like she left me a lot of material after she passed. And I'm working on a documentary based on that diary right now. I'm a writer and a filmmaker as well. So I know she left this to me because she left notes in it for me. She's very funny. But she admitted there all the different times from the very beginning of her career when she had to deal with that fear, when she was grappling with it in such vivid detail. It just really got to me. Beautiful, powerful things about, having to have her hair look a certain way and how that made her so angry. It always had to look this way. Because back then, you didn't walk in the room with natural hair. Like there was it was not a lot of wiggle room for what was acceptable if you were trying to have her career. Anyway, my mother was modeled for me that you walk in the room because that room belongs to you. But underneath it, she had to battle what Stacey's talking about, like we all do. And she did it with really healthy means sometimes and unhealthy means sometimes. And that's just our true legacy. That's the reality of it. We do struggle, and that you shouldn't pretend. And don't look up to my mother or any of these figures that we're talking about and think, oh, I couldn't do that. They were bigger. They were superpowers. That's just not true. They were audacious, yeah, and they had support of one another, but they were scared also, really scared at times. It's just there was something much bigger than their fear, which is their determination. That's all. That's the only thing.
I'm just going to jump in because I know we're running short on time, and I can't moderate if Brittany leaves. So.
No, we're okay. We're okay.
Okay.
With everybody, I promise we're good. Thank you. Suzanne, I know we're all so excited to see that film and to continue to see your beautiful work because ever since your mother on A Different World,
A Different World, right?
I really was obsessed and started to realize that I could throw my shoulders back and my head up and walk into rooms like that despite what I was battling inside. So thank you all for continuing that work. Gina, I'd love to know, you are doing so much. What's the wisdom? And we're fortunate to still have your father here. What is the wisdom that you have brought forward into Sankofa and all the beautiful work you do?
Well, it's interesting. There's like all of us, I'm sure there's so many things that come up and could be answered to this question. But one thing that keeps coming up for me is that both my parents are always interested in other people. They're always inquiring about other people. If you get into a cab or if you walk down the street with my father, he talks to everybody. And it's not like he's just waving, you know, he literally wants to know, like, where are you from? How long have you been in the United States? Or what, you know, what's your favorite food? I mean, he really gets into speaking to people. And my mom also is just fascinated with other people and, you know, other foods and other countries and other cultures. And so I think that one of the things they've taught me in particular is that there is value in everyone. Mm-hmm. And we have an opportunity to learn from everyone. And I think that's why my collaborative nature is the way it is, because I think that sharing and being in community and learning from other people enhances who I am and how I walk through the world and the knowledge that I have. And, you know, I don't boast about a lot of stuff because I'm more interested in boasting about other people. And I guess the way in which I boast about myself is sharing what I know about other people, mm-hmm. and uplifting their platforms and engaging and shining a light on the work that other people are doing. And so I will say that that is the wisdom that I have gotten, is that I feel like there is value in everyone, every single person, and especially those who are challenged and in spaces where they feel disconnected. Yeah. Because that's where you can learn really the most, and also an opportunity to connect.
That's right. That's right. How about for you, Dr. Muhammad?
Well, as a couple, as a family, they instilled in us similar wisdom as Mr. Lynch did. Mm-hmm. You can always come home. You must come home. And you can do anything that you need to do at home. Mm. And they, as a couple, exuded love, art, and activism. That's what we use to describe them. But as individuals, my mother was a fierce advocate for equity. Yes. There are many stories I can tell you, from Raising in the Sun to other things. But if you think of American Gangster, mm-hmm. and when she slapped Denzel, says, I will leave you. That's the fierceness I'm talking about, not that Velvet Ruby D stuff. I'm talking, I saw that movie, my sister and I, we looked at each other like, whoa. And then my father, he always taught us grace. Mm. There was nothing that could not be solved with grace. Mm. And that you may have to sit a minute and look for it and find it or wait for it to come, but it can always be addressed with grace. And I think that shaped his personality and the work that he did. Mm-hmm. So that's what I got from them. Love, art, activism, fierce advocacy for equity, and grace.
And you're carrying it forward so powerfully. Dominique, Ilyasa, you're going to close us out. Dominique, we are seeing so much of that wisdom in action through you. What's been the most meaningful for you? What's that one piece of wisdom that you've been using to propel you forward?
And I think I hear my father's words in my head like at least 20 times a day. And that is, you can't be big and small at the same time. He always says this. Dominique, I used to be petty penny. When I tell you, I was like I was like, anything you step on my foot, you stepped on my foot. You know, I was reactionary, I was emotional. And, I thought that was, being vocal. That's what you gotta be strong. You don't take nothing. You gotta always speak up. When somebody does something to you, you speak up, you speak it out. But that doesn't always, help the bigger picture, to progress the bigger picture. And so you've always got to look at that. Again, where do you fit in this? Where do you fit in this movement, in this space, in your community, in your job, wherever you show up? You know, how do you fit into that space? And I think that I hear his words often. He talks about it in his book, Reject the Stone. But you can't be big and small at the same time. And for those of you who, you know, want to, you know, look up transformational leaders, I think Reverend Sharpton will be on that line, not just because I'm his daughter, but because I have seen like the transformation that he has even made as a leader to get to the next level and to help progress the bigger picture, the people. That's what it's about, to the next level. And so as me now, even in all the work that I do, I'm also a mom. I have a 2-year-old son, Marcus Al. And so for me, it's like, you know, I've got to think bigger all the time. It's all about how can I, you know, look at the bigger picture, because it not only impacts me now or my family or my father, my mother or my sister, but it now impacts my son and what he will become. So it's very important. And I hear those words, and then I hear my mom in the other ear, you know, saying, you know, always remember who you are and who you are. No matter what, you can weather anything, knowing who you are and knowing whose you are. And so I take those two sayings, you know, to heart all the time. And it has helped to really, you know, define any approach that I've taken in life. You know, I can deal with, you know, now people. Before, when I was younger, I used to hate like people talking stuff about my dad, or I used to be the one on Twitter saying, "Now this is not right," you know, going back and forth with the trolls, and you know, and you don't have to
get out those Twitter streets.
You gotta figure out how you can be bigger, because you being bigger is being bigger for everyone, for your sister, for your community, for the world, you know. And so I just encourage everybody to be bigger. You know, let's get you know, let's get through, you know, being the petty pennies. Like, let's get over that. Like, let's now look for how we can really show up in this space, in this movement, in this world, and understanding the time that we are in right now. We each individually can make a significant impact and difference by shooting to be bigger. So.
Amen. Well, Stacy started off by saying we can always go home. Ilyasa, take us home.
Okay. I thought you were going to say, and then that's it. But, you know, I think of my mother, and I think of a young, beautiful woman having 4 babies, being pregnant with twins, being the wife of a man who challenged a government that had been historically unjust in the 1960s, when some people didn't quite understand. And yet, having her home firebombed, having witnessed her husband's assassination, that she was still, you know, love, she was still joy, she was still all of these great things, and instilled specific values in her daughter. And one thing that I learned from her is that she never saw herself as a victim. She never accepted no or I can't as an answer for herself. When I think of my father, I think of controlling the narrative, that we have to control the narrative ourselves, because we were here before Christopher Columbus. We were here before someone decided that they were going to change our education curriculum. We are the indigenous people of the world, of the Philippines, of Europe, of Africa, of the Americas. And so when we think about our ancestors who were enslaved, refined, and industrious African citizens, African and indigenous American citizens, that, you know, if we are going to allow them to just be reduced to slaves, the onus is on us. But when we take control of that narrative, we understand that had it not been for these refined and industrious African citizens, African human beings, that no one would have the opportunity today to call the United States of America our home. And so we owe them. And this is what it looks like, as Malcolm said, when we control our own narratives and not sit back and wait for someone else to do something for us that they never did. And you know, one thing that I'm always like, why do I have to be so passionate when I speak? I always say I want to speak calmly, like, you know, Dr. Muhammad and, you know, Stacy and Gina.
We can
I don't know what happened. I can't do it either. I can't do it either.
Take me out that door.
Because we love really hard, and we understand, and we have seen some things, you know, and you know, it can almost be more than we can bear, but we know God gives us no more than we can handle. And so again, just having such gratitude for the women doing the work, and also holding up our men and our brothers.
Check us out, www.daughtersofthemovement.com. Stay connected.
You know I got you. Yes, please do visit daughtersofthemovement.com and nationalactionnetwork.net to find out how we can all be a part of what you all are doing. Like you said, Ilyasa, we love hard. And from me and the 10,000 I come with to each of you, we love you all so big. Thank you so much for sharing your beauty, your wisdom, and all the work that you continue to do.
Thank you
so much, Brittany. Thank you.
It was an amazing conversation.
Love you.
Hey, we did it,
sisters.
Thank you so much, daughters. Thank you all for joining us for this dynamic discussion. We encourage you to tune in and engage, of course, with the Daughters of the Movement, and you can do that across various platforms. Number one is now Clubhouse. Number two is also, of course, www.daughtersofthemovement.com. But we want all of you out there, rep your sisterhood, okay? Rep your tribe, your family, rep your community, and yes, rep your nation by being committed, consistent, and finding your truth, knowing your history, where you come from, what your passion is, and what brings out how that is resonating in the world. And collectively, we can impact change starting right from within. Thank you so much.